E-commerce doesn't have any geographic limits, and with the right strategy, you can sell to anybody 24/7. I love that idea. I love someone just going on, clicking it, and I wake up in the morning and check my email, and boom, another deposit of money has happened. That's fantastic.
Okay, today we're breaking down whether or not you should be in the e-commerce space. You may have heard us talk about this on the podcast before. There's a lot of different ways you can be in e-commerce, whether it's actually buying a drop shipping site, whether you're building brands on Amazon, or maybe you're actually buying like a content website. Our guests today have done all of the above, and we're going to talk about the pros and the cons and get some feedback from each. So let me bring them in one at a time. First, let me bring in my partner, Mr. Joey Murray. Joey, you have a little bit of background in the e-commerce space. One, you've done a drop shipping site that we make fun of all the time on the podcast called 100unicorns.com. And most recently, the more successful story, maybe is worth us talking about, is that you and your daughter bought a content website called earthlygo.com.
Well, here's the thing about that. I think that's a totally different subject, Russ. I think the content website piece should be its own vertical. And so today, I'd like to focus on just the e-commerce space. And as you mentioned, I think the drop shipping model is not a good one. I'm just going to go ahead and say it does not scale unless you are a very gifted digital marketer that can get tons and tons of traffic to those sites, but at a fraction of the cost of what you're actually selling. But when it comes to physical products, that's what I think we should really hone in on today, Russ, because there's we can be really focused in our conversation around that instead of like it being fragmented. And I'd like to tell you that I'm brand new in this space because I've just hired an operator for 100 Unicorns to build our own products. And I'll tell you, the first operator, strikeout. We built the products and all of the cheap imitations came in and undercut the price. So I have a bunch of blankets and mat mats on sale right now. Just fire sale, okay? Get your capital back and move on. But it's all about understanding the algorithm. It's all about understanding what people are looking for, their intent, and then finding the right products in a price point that gives you the opportunity to make a profit. And I did not do that with the last operator, but the new operator is going to make it happen.
If you've listened to our show for any length of time, you've heard us talk about infinite banking and how we were able to use that concept to create over $50,000 a month in passive income. But it's just not that easy to figure out, how does this all connect into my own personal system?
Steady. That's why we created the passive income operating system, bro. It shows you how to turn active income into passive income. It makes all the steps come together. If you would like to get access to it as a podcast listener, we've never given this away in public before, go to what'swhatwallstreet.com/PIOS.
All right, so let's move around the table here. I'm going to go to you, Mr. David Karcher. You've taken a deep interest in building physical products and selling them e-commerce. Give a little bit of background to the audience so that they know a little bit of where you're coming from.
First of all, I think it starts with understanding who I am as my investor DNA, right? So I'm a D profile, right? I like the idea of e-commerce. No, strike it. I love the idea of e-commerce, selling online, participating in a global marketplace, which by the way isn't going anywhere anytime soon. This is something that I have been working on or in for the last 2+ years. And just in the last 6 months, we were able to identify our product and get it launched, right? And so I'm really, really excited about this topic today and just how we can have a conversation around, is it a passive income type of opportunity? So glad to be here.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ben, you've had a lot of experience selling things online and over the phone, but it's been in the land world. So I want to ask a question. We'll go circle back around on this. Kind of, is this strategy a good fit for your investor DNA? We talk a lot about investor DNA. I know you meet with our clients online and you have conversations around them. Talk a little bit about how you see this world and how do you decide in the future whether or not you're going to make a mistake like Joey or have success like David in the space.
Oh man, just a drastic comparison there. Well, thanks for having me back on the show, Russ. Really grateful to be here with you guys. And that's a great question. So in our passive income mastermind, we talk about these type of ideas all the time. I haven't moved forward with it because, like you said, my investor DNA as an I want to go really fast, and this takes time to build, and it's that's a challenge for me. But I'm also an investor, and so my first priority as an investor is understanding the business model. Where do the profits come from? What are the risks? I want to know what the real margins are after the expenses are paid out. I want to know how sustainable that revenue is. What's the biggest bottleneck for scaling is a question I would have. Most importantly, how passive is it really? You know, I'm wearing my passive income t-shirt here. Passive income isn't as hands-off as a lot of us may think. And so in this world, looking at different models, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast here, I would have to analyze which one best aligns with my investment goals. And so before jumping in, long story short, I want to look at the numbers. I want to see what the effort required is going to be, and then really the long-term viability of the business and what the exit would be.
Yeah, I know you're not a true eye when you say I want to look at the numbers, unless you're trying to see if you're winning. Because those of us who are pure eyes are not looking at the numbers yet. That we look at them after the fact and we go, "Oh, that worked great. Let's do some more of that." Or, "Man, why did we make that mistake? Who told me to do that? Oh, it was me. It was my idea, and I kept pushing for it." And we'll come back to you, Stallion. All right. From your perspective, right? What personality traits or skills make someone, in your opinion, a good fit for the e-commerce?
Well, first and foremost, if you're new to the show and you're not familiar with us talking about the investor DNA profile, this is the first step in this conversation. If you haven't done it, go to wealth.wallstreet.com/community, join the community. You can gain access to this specific course. You do your profile, and then it gives you, I'm going to be reading off some of those very characteristics that fall under your specific profile, and it'll help you to know more detail. But in that, we talk about the pros, the cons, and like the key factors for each one of these passive income strategies. Under e-commerce, a couple of the things that I noticed that are like stand out to me is people like S's and C's in particular, I think are drawn to the Amazon space because, or online business in this case, because they don't have to do any selling.
All right, hold on one second, real quick. I'm going to clear this up. You said S's and C's, and for those who don't know what that means, an S is typically someone who is an empathizer, right? A steady profile. A C is more cautious, more analytical. Keep going.
Exactly. And here's the thing I think that you'll find about the Amazon business in particular. They have all sorts of details that can be controlled, right? So if you're that C personality, you emphasize on the quality of the products. You get to maintain standards. You're delegating to a team of people a lot of times that can be operating the business on your behalf. There's also sort of efficiencies, and the Amazon platform is the #1 marketplace in the world that does a lot of heavy lifting on the sales side. And I think the other thing on the S profile, again, it's proven. The Amazon sales platform is proven, and that's really kind of gives that S profile a lot of like stability, which is what they look for. Again, you can build a team around you, and it's very practical in the sense that people are looking for these products on a regular basis, and you just have to figure out what product is going to sell and which ones people are looking for most, which there's all the data behind the scenes to tell you that. It's almost like an unfair advantage. And the other part about that is there's a lot of coaching available, right? So there are people in the space, and in particular, one of our partners in the business is Voltage, and Voltage Business Builders. They actually teach you how to build one from scratch, your own brand, your own name, the own product, trademarks, and everything. And they give you all of the drivers that you need to know in order to build a successful product and brand. Now, if you're a high D, that means you're like a driver. You're fast paced. And I think the e-commerce space is very attractive to you as well because it gives you opportunity to scale a business very quickly. We've actually seen people using virtual assistants in that case. And man, it's a very powerful machine if you can get it going. And you also can get a lot of control as a high D, what sort of product choices are available, and you get to directly impact the business by being a part of those discussions and everything else. Now, the I's, I think, would probably find this to be super exciting to build something like this, but they tend to not be great at the details. They tend to not be really, they kind of flash in the pan on some things, and they don't really want to follow through. And there's a lot of follow through that takes into building a brand on Amazon. There's a lot of technical things that have to be done behind the scenes. So that's just like a quick overview. Is if you're trying to think about this in terms of an Amazon specific business, that's from our investor DNA profile.
So if you like to go fast, maybe not perfect. If you like to be involved, definitely more interesting to you. And if you like to crunch numbers and see how all the stuff works, you can see what it's going to be, what it's going to take, and your inputs would then be able to dictate your outputs. I think that that's a fair assessment there. All right, so Ben, as we dig into this more, I want to know from your perspective, how do you see this? What is the thing that you're going to be most excited about, and what would make you, as someone who is more fast-paced, like shiny object syndrome, if you will, what makes this a win for you? Why would you ever do this? Why would this be a pro for you?
So the pro, I would probably boil it down to two things. One is scalability, being able to grow it. E-commerce doesn't have any geographic limits. And with the right strategy, you can sell to anybody 24/7. I love that idea. I love someone just going on, clicking it, and I wake up in the morning and check my email and boom, another deposit of money has happened. That's fantastic. Automation would be the second one. If you have the right strategy, you have fulfillment centers, chatbots, ad systems, so many things can be automated that it's going to reduce my daily workload. And to Joey's point, I don't have to pay attention to those details. I've set it off to somebody else to do.
All right, David. So you've been running this business for a while now, and your profile likes to be involved. Now, you will go through the details, but you're results-oriented guy. How did you get over the slow start to this? How did you get over the part where it takes 12, 18 months to really even get the ground running, if you will?
That was the hardest part, to be honest with you. I mean, I what I've learned is that there's a huge learning curve, right? And it takes a while to figure out, first of all, what are you even going to sell, right? You have to learn to identify products and all the things. And I started out of the gate fast, right? And about 6 months in, I realized, man, I'm getting stuck in the minutia, right? All of the things that are all these little details, these little learning curves that I have to continue to go through and jump through. And quite honestly, I almost gave up on the opportunity. And it was after having a conversation with my coach and the Voltage business builders, they were able to help put a team around me to support me. And that's how I was able to keep the ball moving forward. So, there was a lot there, and then down the road, once you've learned that, and then you successfully launch, right? Then you have a whole new set of challenges, right? It's like we ran out of inventory sooner than we anticipated. So now I'm learning the art of inventory management, right? Which means mapping out production plans for when and how we place orders for the remainder of the year. So as a D, I had to have some people come in and kind of just support me in order to make it happen. And now it's kind of like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. You said have a coach. And we know that to be successful in life, we need coaches in our life. The people who have spent the most amount of money on coaching are typically the ones who are having the most success, no matter what it is, whether it's in physical training or businesses or whatever it is. They have insights. Those coaches, while they are expensive on the front end, they're a fraction of the cost on the back end. They help unlock things for you that you would never have gotten to.
There was nothing worse than walking into class when you're in school and the teacher saying, "Pop quiz day." Why? Because you were unprepared. Are you unprepared, though, for financial freedom?
Don't be. Find out how close you are by taking our 30-second quiz at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/quiz.
Tribe, if you're still searching for what is going to be that passive income source that's going to push you over the hump, it's going to help you become financially free, head over to the Art of Passive Income podcast, where our friend Mark Podolsky breaks down his amazing land flipping method.
You've heard us talk about how this one strategy has created over $30,000 a month in passive income for Russ and I. Do yourself a favor, wherever you listen to podcasts, go hit the subscribe button to the Art of Passive Income podcast today.
So, Joey, what would be a potential myth that you would say that you've seen so far as it relates to e-commerce that beginners should know before jumping in?
I would say that this is, from all the experience that I've seen other people do this, I can't speak from personal experience yet, but the people that I've seen do this, it is a very cash intensive business, right? It takes quite a bit of capital to get started. Number one, just a launch. But once you do launch, you then have to have more capital in the wings in order to scale quickly, because it's just like David just mentioned. Man, you sold out your inventory in 60 days, and all of a sudden it's an inventory management. And that means I got to have a lot more capital always at play in order to keep the machine growing. You have to kind of feed the machine. So if you're looking for something that's going to produce very immediate passive income returns, this is not it, right? It's not a immediate cash flow business that's going to put money back into your pocket as a passive stream. It's going to require that money to be reinvested very quickly. So I think that's probably the biggest one that I've experienced. What else would you add?
Well, I want to come back to you, Ben, because you said that a second ago. I kind of want to tie that though together, if we will, is that you said passive income and you don't feel like this is a passive income stream. I've heard from countless people who are running businesses on Amazon would say this is not passive. One, very active. Two, to Joey's point, it's not a passive income. Like, they're really not running it to create cash flow. They're running it to build up a brand that they can sell. How does that fit with you, with your profile, and with the fact that you've been building a land investing business where you're buying raw land and truly turning it into monthly reoccurring income? Like, do you see this as like a fit? Like, it's like, hey, it doesn't fit me perfectly for passive income, but I like the growth side? Or are you like, man, I'm out on it because of that?
No, I love the idea of it. The idea is great. The execution is not going to be great for me. It just isn't. So I would, there's just like a lot of these ideas, these businesses that we talk about, both on the podcast and in our mastermind group, you can do it yourself, or you can have a done for you model. I would have to do a done for you model or partner with somebody that likes the details in this. It would be overwhelming for me. I mean, it's like from a cons perspective, all the great things that David was talking about with inventory and suppliers, shipping, I was sinking my seat. Like, that does not sound fun, interesting, anything to me. I would need to find that person that was going to absolutely crush that part of the business. And the cash flow risk, like, so not to take it, we just talked about land flipping on a previous podcast recently. It could be cash flow intensive when you're starting up. This is also cash flow intensive. And so it may take a while to see the returns happen. And so for my investor profile, my buy box as well, I might not want to have it take that much time to start seeing those returns come back to me. So I hope I answered your question on that one.
No, it is. So I'm going to turn, we've kind of taken it from the angle of starting one of these businesses. And I would say most people should not start a business. Starting a business is, the success rate is like very low. I think it's like 93% of all new businesses fail. Right? Like, I mean, it is not a successful, if you're looking at probabilities, you're putting yourself in a potential for failure starting any new business. So I would turn that around though. And if you look at businesses that have been in existence for at least 2 years, the probability of success is super high. It's like almost 90% that they will continue. So what I would say as a flip to this, and depends on where you're at on the income or the capital perspective, how much money you have. If you're someone that's sitting here listening to this and you have cash to deploy, I would encourage you, if this was an area that you were looking into, is to go to some of these sites and find opportunities to buy existing businesses. Because like I said a second ago, the people that I'm talking to are building them for the purpose of selling them. Yet on the opposite end, there's got to be a buyer. There's got to be someone who's buying them, who's maybe installing an operator who then is basically turning capital into cash flow. And so I think that there's a great opportunity for people to look at it in regards to that. So David, I want to like ask you the question, and maybe we've already answered it, but for the person who's a beginner, who's thinking about this, who's considering maybe starting it, right? I'm not trying to rain on your parade. You're having success. I think you're going to be in that 7 percentile, right, of people that actually make it. But there's got to be some things that you wish you would have known prior to getting that business. Any beginner mistakes that people could avoid as a result of you already experiencing and going through that process for them?
Yeah, I think well, first of all, let me just say, I think e-commerce is one of the greatest opportunities in our marketplace today, right? To create, build, scale a business, potentially have a huge exit. But to your point, for someone to buy an existing e-commerce business, there's massive opportunity for there to be passive income. So passive income opportunities, I think, are great. Not right out of the gate, but I think they are great down the road. That being said, Joey kind of hit on what my biggest learning was the capitalization piece of it, right? You're kind of told, hey, you need to have this amount of money, $50 to $100,000 to deploy to launch a product, right? And just about anybody could say, wow, okay, I could probably do that. Not a problem, right? It's once you have that initial success, right? Once you've done the testing, done the launch, and all of a sudden you've experienced this huge success. And now it's like scale. How do I scale this thing? It's like, how do I capitalize this thing to make it into a $3, $5, $10 million opportunity for an exit in the next 4 years or 5 years, right? So I think for me, the biggest learning lesson that I would say to beginners is plan on having more capital than what you think you're going to need or what they tell you that you're going to need, because there's always going to be you've got to feed the beast, right? Once it takes off, you've got to feed it.
All right, Stallion, jump in here. If you were starting fresh with e-commerce, what strategy would you choose?
I think ultimately, out of all the different ones, I still think the physical product space is the future. I think that is the place where there's the most opportunity. Depending on your resources, depending on your actual experience level, and like we've talked about, your investor DNA, I think you have to think about which one of these ways would fit for you. Because for the person that is the high driver that has significant resources, I would say, man, immediately either buy one that's already working and scale it up quickly, find the value add opportunities. Like, think about any business. What if you're looking at a business to buy and there's these factors of, hey, there's low hanging fruit for us to improve this business to where now it's worth twice as much as what I bought it for 12 to 24 months later. That's an amazing opportunity, whether it's e-commerce or any business. But so I would focus in, if you're a driver and you have significant resources, do something like that. But don't be the day-to-day operator unless you are 100% like that's your DNA. If you're a C or a D, I think you could probably do those things much better than if you're an I or an S model, right? And then the other part is if you have significant resources, I would do a done for you if you wanted to build something from the ground up. But either way, you have to have the right expectations. And that's where it comes into. If you need immediate cash flow and you're not able to buy an existing business, then this is not for you. It's going to take you at least 24 to 36 months, and many, like the examples that I've seen, to start seeing that cash flow in a position that you could start taking some off the top. And that's the expectation you should go into it with. If it happens earlier, great. But that's kind of where I've seen it over the years.
You said something out there. You keep throwing out these terms that some people may or may not understand. You said done for you. What does that even mean?
So, for instance, there are people out there that will absolutely build the business on your behalf with the operating team behind you to help you identify the products, help you build your logo and your business name and get it registered and all the things, and then source the products overseas, have them shipped into FBA to where those things are now being sold on your behalf, and they manage the day-to-day processes, the marketing, all the things. So there are services out there. Voltage is one of them. That's who I've just hired for 100 Unicorns. And so it is existing people that have a success record of doing it over and over that you can hire to do that.
David, is that what you did? Did you start it on your own, or did you go to done for you model? Which way did you do?
Yeah, I started on my own and realized that pretty quickly that A, there was a huge ramp up, a huge learning curve that I was going to have to go through, and B, it was going to require a time commitment. We talk about passive income, but a lot of our time is precious too. And I was spending 15 to 20 hours a week in the evenings and on the weekends trying to figure out and learn all the things as quickly as I could, and just realized that I just ran out of bandwidth. And so again, I mentioned it earlier, but rather than give up on the opportunity, I talked with my coach. My coach introduced me to the founders of Voltage, and we sat down and had a conversation about how could we pivot and maybe make this a done for you type of situation where their team could come in and kind of handle a lot of those things that I was struggling with. And so that's ultimately how we ended up getting this thing off the ground.
So at the end of the day, you're running a business, and in business, we find that there's things that we are good at and there's things that we're not good at. And either we can continue to be not good at them and doing them ourselves, or we can hire people and put them into place. And it sounds like that's what the done for you model is. It's like hiring people who are good at those things that you could do, but just not as good as someone who has expertise there. That makes sense. All right, Ben, I'm going to finish with you because I know that you're having a lot of conversations with people who are coming to our Passive Income Mastermind. And one of the topics at hand is like, what are the things that match my investor DNA? When should I decide, to pull the trigger on one of these things? I heard David's having success, so I'm excited about it. I know Joey's not. How do I know? So you're talking to someone. Anything that we left off that we need to make sure we cover before we hang up, that the person listening is like, hey, I feel I have all the insight to have this kind of takeaway for it?
Yeah. So one thing we talk about a lot is the investor buy box. It's knowing what you want to focus in on and execute on that. That aligns with our investor DNA. As somebody that's deciding maybe this is for me, maybe this is not for me, two things I want to leave you with is, first and foremost, get educated. When I was doing my MBA, I learned a lot about macroeconomics and geopolitical tensions. Both at the time of this recording are pretty relevant. So, what are some of the risks I need to be concerned about in that business if I have to get my product, outsourced from a different vendor? And the second thing I would say is get in the right room. I mean, that will shortcut your learning. David said, like, the ramp up of that. If I'm in the right room with people doing what I want to do, whether it's, this or something else, it is going to absolutely catapult you further ahead than you would have if you just tried to figure it out on your own. That could be coaching, that could be coming to our events, or just getting in somebody's room that is doing it is going to help you out tremendously.
All right, Tribe, you've got to hear of another stream or another opportunity, right? Like if this is a place for you to dive in deep into, and whether or not you're a driver, someone who likes being involved in the business, or maybe you're like Ben and I, and you tend to be that influencer, just like the way things look, and would love to have a business that's super successful and tell people about it. Maybe this one is not for you. I'm going to say it's definitely probably not for you if you're going to have to be involved in the back end. But if you're someone who is steady, you like methodical processes, you love digging into the numbers, and you're willing to wait it out, then this could be a process as long as you have the capital, as long as you have the ability to get either a coach involved or find one that you can purchase that already has all those things. Maybe this is a strategy for you to consider. So hopefully this was helpful to you. We'll continue on the series of breaking down the different passive income opportunities that we see, that we have on this passive income matrix. If you haven't already, and if you need to, get on a call with one of these coaches. You can do that at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/free call. And a part of that, they help you understand what your investor DNA is. They can help you understand how our passive income operating system works and help you get on your journey to becoming financially free this year in 2025. Thank you, coaches. Thank you for listening. Have an amazing day.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.